Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. And today's guest is Laura Bratton, who is a keynote speaker. And she's got some special qualities about her that I'm not going to tell you about because she surprised me when we had a little pre-talk. And then I realized something about her and I'm like, no way. So, Laura, welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the Upshift.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And so, Laura, tell us a little bit about your story. You know, my surprise, remember when we were talking before, when you told me that special quality of yours, I'm like, what? I had no idea. So I'm going to let you tell your story.
So I'll make a very long story short, and then we can absolutely go from there.
Right.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
The first 9 years of life, great, perfectly healthy, active, outgoing, fearless child, climbing trees, riding bikes, no fear in life. The only thing I didn't like was when it was time to come in and go to sleep. I didn't like that because it was meant playtime was over. Then at the age of 9, I was diagnosed with a very extremely rare eye disease. Even 30 years later, it doesn't have a formal diagnosis. At the age of 14, that's when I started to lose a significant amount of sight. So I went from reading large print to having to either read braille or audio. Everything in my world had to be adjusted. And then through those 4 years of high school, I went from the sight I had then to what I have now is no sight at all. So, because of my life experience, that's why I'm a speaker and coach. And that's why I wrote my book all around how do we navigate through change?
Yeah.
And what I've developed is using the resources of grit and gratitude as we navigate through change, not exact step by step to do process, rather, two resources that we can take and use and then apply to our specific change.
Okay. I've got questions. So, how do you define courage?
So let me start by saying how I used to define courage and then how I've learned through my life experience. So I thought courage was being strong, pushing forward, not feeling our emotions, grin and bear it. Just somehow it'll all happen. Courage looks like not showing any emotion or pain or always being positive. What I've realized, again, through my life experience, the way I define courage now is having the ability, having the strength to acknowledge and validate our current feelings. It is what it is, our current feelings, our current situation, and then having the strength to choose to move forward.
Yeah.
So a real world example of how I define courage now is when I'm feeling anxious, rather than saying, "Oh, I can't feel anxious. I can't be anxious. I just got to be strong and put a smile on my face and move on." Rather now, it's taking a few minutes to sit with that anxiety, feel the panic attack, feel the pain, and then choosing, yes, I'm feeling anxious, and I'll send that email or I'll make that phone call or I'll do whatever needs to be done to move forward.
That's amazing. I love that because it does take courage to take a breath, to not just let that emotion trigger emotion. Your body fills with this emotion.
Yes.
And so you're saying that courage comes in when you can say, "Hey, emotion, you're there. I recognize you. I'm going to take a breath."
Yes, 100%. And that actually gives us more strength.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it because my thought was, and so many people that I work with, if I feel the anxiety or feel the depression or feel the anger, I'm going to be swallowed and never get through the anger, the depression, the anxiety. But the reality is, the gift is when we take that breath, as you said, and feel it, it then gives us control to move forward.
And so many people think the opposite. They think if I
Yes.
feel this feeling,
Yes.
that means I'm weak. I'm going to
Yes.
show the cracks in my skin or
Yes.
in my being.
Yes.
And I know I learned the hard way that being vulnerable is way more powerful than coming out like a bull.
It's harder.
Yes,
It's
it is
much
harder.
harder.
So I'm curious, what I mean, you call navigating change. I mean, there's navigating change like you had to move schools, or I don't know, you got kicked off the dance squad. I mean, that's change. But having a whole physical sense taken away, I want to know what that tipping point was. I mean, you had the opportunity to go lay on the couch and woe is me and be served and say, well, I can't see. So, you need to pander to me. Instead, what did it take? Was there a thing that happened? Or tell me what that was like. What was the tipping point when you said, nope, I'm going to grab this bull by the horns and go forward?
So it was not my strength and it was not my courage. It was the gift was as I was in those high school years, deeply anxious, severely depressed, in a deep time of grief. And I did my mantra, my thought pattern was, I can't do this. I did. I just wanted to just say, life isn't worth it. This is having to change and make these adaptations. It's not worth it. I don't have any purpose anymore. What changed that is I'm thinking that, feeling that, believing that it was the support system around me. So it was the support system around me that didn't just say, oh, hey, be strong. Let's move forward. Get it together. Keep going. It was the support system of those day-to-day actions. So an example would be my parents would tell me every day, and I mean that very literal. I don't mean that, I mean that very specifically. Every day remind me, we don't know the future. Yes, the future is overwhelming and frightening and scary. So all we have to do is figure out this moment. And then after this moment, figure out the next moment. And we just have to take it day by day, moment by moment.
Yeah. So, two things you just said that are very key, I want my listeners to pick up on, is a support system around you. Whether you have it naturally, like parents, and if you don't have it naturally, go seek out your friends, those people who will support you no matter what, in everything you do. If you're trying to lose weight, I mean, the simplest things, trying to be more on time, have those people. I mean, you're very lucky that your parents were your support system. And then they taught you, in my interpretation, they taught you not to fear, because fear is that false expectation appearing real, that future expectation.
Right. Because that next moment won't happen if we don't accomplish what needs to get done in this moment. So
Yes,
again, a real world example for me would be I was so terrified about, oh my gosh, how will I finish high school? And my parents' perspective was, well, first you have to get up, get out of bed and eat breakfast and get to high school.
practical, pragmatic.
So it was very, again, where I was so overwhelmed with the future, they taught me, and exactly what you said, they modeled and instilled in me, if you don't focus on the present, the future doesn't happen.
If you don't focus on the present, the future doesn't happen. Wow. And that, for dreamers and visionaries, it's like those are great big dreams and visions, but you do have to do something today to step toward that.
Toward that. Yes.
Yeah. So you're a keynote speaker and you speak about grit and gratitude. Please
Yes.
tell us about that.
So the reason I focus on grit and gratitude is again because of that support system around me. As I went through those high school years and as I moved forward and was adapted and but obviously still have to live every single day as a person without sight in a sighted world, what are my tools? What are my resources? How did I navigate through that extreme trauma and then still now live every day? And that's where grit and gratitude came from. So the way I define grit is not, again, just like the courage, where I originally thought grit was just pushing forward, not feeling any emotions, and only focusing on the long goal, the end game. What I realized grit was again focusing on those small everyday moments. So going back to the example I just gave, grit would look like just me waking up, getting breakfast and getting to school on time. That was me choosing to have grit. At other times, the grit looked like me choosing to continue through the English class when I was so deeply in a panic and just wanted to say, use the panic to overwhelm me rather than using breathing techniques to process through that panic. So, grit is all about us believing in ourselves and trusting ourselves and having that self compassion moment by moment by moment so we can reach the long term goal.
It sounds to me that grit, part of it, part of the pie of grit, one of the slices would be consistency.
Yes,
And
100%.
yeah, and then when you're faced with, do I get out of bed or do I not? Do I go to the couch, eat popcorn, and watch 3 Netflix series? Or do I go and write that blog, paper, article that is due at the end of the week? You know, do what I'm talking obviously
Yes.
from personal experience. You know, those moments of choice. Okay, I want to know this. How do you navigate the moment of choice in those moments?
So let's take that very specific example. I want to just get on the couch with popcorn and watch 3 Netflix. Acknowledging, okay, that's what I want to do, and asking ourselves, does that get us to my end goal? Will that help me pass the class? No, I can do that later. It's not saying I never can eat popcorn, enjoy Netflix, but in this moment, I'm going to spend 30 minutes working on that paper.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's breaking it down into manageable goals. It's not saying, okay, I can never have popcorn again, never watch Netflix again, and I'll spend the rest of my life writing papers.
Oh
But
my.
again, it's reminding ourselves once I spend 30 minutes on this project, then I can enjoy the popcorn and the Netflix. So again, creating it to manageable goals so it's obtainable both for our mindset and just practically in life. If we have those absolutes, it doesn't last, it's not sustainable.
Well, and it's like telling yourself, not no, just not now.
Right. Right.
And that is a mantra. I think I mean, I would like to take that on more and more, but I'm saying to my listeners, you know, when you get faced with the thing you don't want to do, but you know you need to do, and faced with, I don't know, bagging out of it, then it's just not now. It's not no, you can do that later, but just not now. And just go ahead and just bite the bullet, put a little grit into it, and do the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So grit and then gratitude.
So I definitely want to talk about how the gratitude started. I definitely did not wake up one day and say, I am so grateful. This life is wonderful. I'm glad I had this trauma. I'm glad just for everything in life. I'm positive. I'm happy. That's not how gratitude started. It all started for me at the end of high school. I was having a conversation with a mentor, and at the end of the conversation, she said, "Oh, Laura, by the way, I have something I want you to try. I want you to start focusing on gratitude." And being from the Southeast, my first reaction was you smile and nod and say thank you. But in your head, you're thinking, you are a terrible mentor. And I don't agree with that because I'm going blind, I'm anxious, I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to be grateful for. So again, in my teenage stubbornness, I decide I'm going to prove her wrong. And I'm going to show her that this is not a good idea to tell a teenager that's going through major trauma.
Yeah.
So I started to write down things I was grateful for. And the one day became 3 days, and the week became 2 weeks. And what I realized is she was not saying, Laura, wake up and be grateful that you're blind. Wake up and be grateful for everything. Minimize the pain. She was teaching me a mindset refrain. She was teaching me how to recognize what I'm grateful for in the midst of the trauma.
Right.
So, again, a very practical example for me, she was not asking me to wake up and say, oh, I'm just so grateful to be blind. Rather, wake up and say, I'm grateful to have a guide dog that helps me navigate the world.
Yeah. It's focusing, which I tell people in my work with the sacramental method, it's metal, and it's about focusing on the goal and keeping your eye on the goal and not getting distracted, which can also go back to our couch scenario
Right, right.
because the couch is
100%.
quite distracting. I have a question about resentment. Did you ever feel resentful?
Absolutely.
And what did you do with that?
First, the resentment came I wanna talk about how I felt it and then what I did with it. I wasn't resentful specifically at a person, it was at life in general.
Right.
So I deeply resented, again, at a practical example, I was deeply resentful that my friends were getting their permit and their driver's license, and I was sitting there having to learn Braille. I was deeply resentful that we had a project due on Friday. All my friends could stay up all night on Thursday, pull an all nighter, and show up and get an A on Friday. I had to start the project that was due on Friday 2 weeks before. And I had to be very diligent about my time management and how much time I spent on the project so that I could accomplish it with that same grade. So I was just resentful at the effort.
Mhm.
So I wanted to explain where I was resentful. And then what I realized is I can't change that I'm not going to be able to drive. I can't change that I have to start a project 2 weeks before my friends. What I can change is my response to it.
Yeah.
So again, that's where both the grit and gratitude come in. What I realized is choosing to say, yes, deeply resentful that I can't drive, yet I'm grateful that I have people in my world that can drive.
Right.
Again, just taking it very down to the practical level. So, and again, it's a daily process. It's not linear. If I just woke up one day and said, "Oh, I'm never gonna be resentful again," and I'll always have great mindset around resentful. It's some days I'm great at it, other days I'm not. So it's a constant process of choosing what am I going to do with that resentment.
So that's powerful. Choice. And we all have choices, even if you're incarcerated in jail, and you have a choice on how you can relate to this thing in your life. You have to go back and do all the rethinking. It's like, how do I relate to this now? Because that is the one thing that we all have the power to do.
Yes.
And that is to relate to things differently.
Yes.
And even from day to day, you might
Literally.
hate somebody one day and learn to appreciate the qualities that maybe you don't, understand, but
Recognize.
that you can appreciate them.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're a keynote speaker. I can see why. Do you have, like, you've already given us some incredible nuggets, the support system, the focus on the positive, the focus on what I can change. When you're feeling these things, depressed, I mean, depression actually is a choice.
Yes.
You can choose yourself out of it.
Yes.
I mean, there might be some clinical depression and you might need help there. Not you per se. I'm just saying the royal you, those people out there that have
Right.
that. And I respect that, but it is a choice to do something about it or to
Right.
change the mindset.
Right.
So empowering. So you have a talk that you do. And at the end of that talk, do you have an action statement? Do you have a call to action? Or what is your conclusion to the talk that you give?
So the call to action is very specific around the grit and gratitude. So the call to action is acknowledge, and again, this goes back to the courage, have the strength to acknowledge the change that you as an organization or you as a company are facing. And then the call to action is what is that one action item that you can do tomorrow? Not next week, not next year, not the end long term goal, but what is that one action of grit that you can apply tomorrow? And what is that one action of gratitude that you can start applying to create a lifestyle of grit and gratitude? So, again, you perfectly said it earlier. It's not just something we pull out and use when we need it. It's creating that foundation every single day of that life of grit and gratitude. So then when we experience change, those resources are already there and in place.
Yeah. So, Laura, how can we find out more about you? Or I think you said you had a book.
Yes. So, Harnessing Courage is a book that I wrote that tells my story and then constantly turns it back to the reader on how can you apply these resources in the change that you're experiencing.
So, what's the name of the book again?
Harnessing Courage.
Harnessing Courage. And you can get that at like Amazon or your
Yes.
regular outlets.
Website. Yes.
Yeah. And so, how do people find you to maybe be a speaker?
The best place is my website. laurabratton.com has all the resources about the speaking, the coaching, the book. It's all there.
Awesome. So Bratton spelled Bratton, by the
Yes.
way. I always have to do that because some people are just listening anyway. Laura, do you have a final nugget of wisdom or inspiration you'd like to leave us with today?
The final word would be know and trust that we are enough, even in change. And the reason I say that is, again, from my own experience, as I was initially going through that vision loss, the change and adapting, and even now, again, as a person without sight in a sighted world, I'm constantly faced with the question, am I still enough? And so to know, and that's where the grit comes in, to have that self-compassion, to trust and believe that I am enough. And again, so many people that I've worked with on various different types of changes, the type of change doesn't matter. They always are asking and wondering the question, am I still worthy? Basically asking in so many words, am I enough? So that would be what I want to leave everyone listening today is know and trust that you're not enough. You most likely don't feel enough in your current situation, but let me be the voice, the presence to say, yes, you are, and trust that you are enough.
Thank you so much. You really have been a very succinct, bullet pointed way of giving us food for thought and easy to apply. Honestly, it just takes us focusing on the positive or on what we
It
need.
takes courage.
Yeah, it takes courage, grit, and gratitude. All right, Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for this platform.
Thank you, Laura Bratton, who gave us some really practical and pragmatic reminders of what to do when life throws you a curveball. Thank you all for listening to the Upshift. If you would like to get to know me better or my work, you can get my book on Amazon, Issues in Your Tissues, or go to my website, angelhoward.co, and look at the retreats and the books. I got another book coming out this fall, and join my mailing list. That is the easiest way to stay in touch because I don't mail very often. It may be once a quarter, and you'll find out what's going on in my world. So thank you so much for listening. Like and subscribe to the podcast. It's always fun to build up the listeners here. And I'd like to hear from you. So give me an email, angel@angelhoward.co. Thanks for listening, and until next time.